We're good?
You good? You moved them.
Sorry.
No, this is not Mark, and he must be out. All right, we're gonna go ahead and call this Delta County Board of Commissioners, Transportation Committee to order. We have a few people here, so as our custom is, we're gonna go around the room and introduce ourselves. And for the record, everybody, this particular meeting is filmed. So I'm Kelly Robinson, District 2 Commissioner, and I'm the chair of this committee.
Jessica Theriault, assistant to Mark Teal.
Mark Teal, County Administrator.
Danielle Sherry Hooper, the cooperative firm.
Jamal Shepard, Transportation Coordinator for the Connect Douglas.
Bill Valentine, Transportation Director.
Gary Watson, Cadet Douglas Director.
Ramona Jackson Jones, the Chairman of the Board of Commissioners and the Vice Chairman of the Transportation Committee.
Welcome, everybody. Director Valentine, first order of business is meeting minutes.
Yes, sir. We have the Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 meeting minutes to adopt.
Yeah. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Dr. Valentine, keep going.
Yes, sir. First item is updates from the Transit Services Division, and the first presentation is from the collaborative firm. Gary,
We're going to turn it over to Danielle, who has a presentation for the collaborative firm.
Hello, good afternoon. I appreciate your time. Thank you. So we're just giving a monthly update or report since the last time we met, this time last month in January. Scheduled activities, advertisements, Chapel Hill News and Views. You may have seen that one already. There's a third page ad, and it is again for 3 months. Hometown Advantage, again a quarter page ad, and it's for 3 months. So we have that from February to April for each publication. This month, the targeted messages are van pool. So we're concentrating not only on the fixed bus route system, but to inform the public there's a plethora of transit service options. And this month, it was van pool program. And here are the examples of each. Chapel Hill News and Views, top, Hometown Advantage, and at the bottom here. Other ongoing activities. So not only do we utilize the print space, we absolutely utilize the digital space. So within our Facebook and Instagram home pages, you'll still see the 30-second video, and that was the truncated version of the how-to with the narration, and you'll see different points of reference within Douglas County. And that, as you can recall, that same 30-second video was used in previous months on Comcast. The how-to video is still out in the universe as a marketing and an educational resource tool. So that is prominently shown at the top of the Facebook page as a static pin, so to speak, and it doesn't move as you move throughout the pages on Facebook. The courthouse digital board out front, you'll see the logo there, as well as Douglasville Happening. So there was just an email this morning in regards to the upcoming community meetings, which I'll mention again a little later. Particularly with social media, there are weekly posts ongoing, and that's our handle there for each at Connect Douglas on Facebook and Instagram. There's a level of online engagement and monitoring. The goal here with social media is to have a level or an extension of customer service in the digital space, as if someone is to walk in off the street on the transportation center and see one of the staff members at the counter. Excuse me. So with that level of digital customer service, any escalated questions or concerns are forwarded to Mr. Watson and his team, and or answered already. So we do have FAQs that I can pull from, and just to give a one-off answer. Sometimes it's, what time are you open? What time do you close? And here is an example from our last meeting together last month till now. This person asked a simple question: how much is the van full? That was prompted because that person may have either saw one of the posts previously, or read the press release, or saw the advertisement. So that lets us know whatever we were doing translated. So there was a press release that went out. There was a social media post about Vanpool, and there's also, again, print ads. How much is a Vanpool program was a question online. If I need to ride to work, will you come get me? No, we can't exactly come right to your door unless there's Flex Ride. So the Flex Ride is one option. Have you looked into the fixed bus routes that are only $2.50 or $1 for students or riders with disabilities, seniors 60 and older? You can also call in advance for the free Flex Ride, gave the number, so giving it another resource. So that's just one example of kind of an easy opportunity for customer service and a good touch point. This was the highest viewed or highest level of impressions on Facebook. So you may have seen this one.
Is it a video?
It is with a link.
Enable links.
Yes, please. So while we do that, with this video, it was over 2,427 impressions. So with impressions are, the number of people who viewed it. Thank you. Very simple and easy. And it also piggybacked off of the messaging that we were doing for the month. Vanpool, and a quick video. And Jessica, for me to go back. Thank you. Thank you very much. The one to the top left was the highest level of engagement on Instagram. That particular post had 175 views, and I think the reason was because it also was, one, informative, two, there were other pictures that gave updates about the groundbreaking that we did online back in November. As you know, there are lit drops, designated locations across Douglas County, so we make sure that they have enough route schedules. Thankfully, Crossroads Church and Lithia Springs Library in particular are running through them. Not a bad thing. It also gives us an opportunity with literature drops to have level of engagement. So for example, Strayer University, having literature drops, having that face-to-face opportunity to foster relationships. We now have quarterly class presentations that stem from a literature drop, and then class presentations in December. We did that most recently again, February 3rd and 5th. A literature drop, and have a conversation with the branch manager at Lithia Springs Library, led to ESL group, or English as a Second Language, training session. So Jamal and I are put over there on March the 2nd. It's a wonderful opportunity to be in front of a bilingual community who some already use Connect Douglas, and that's after, again, speaking with Mr. Brown over at Lithia Springs Library. And because it's a ESL group, there's a translator in the room. And this is another opportunity to, one, utilize the video, two, we already have the brochure in Spanish, and three, have an opportunity of education, not only on fixed bus routes, but all other transit services. And then we have obviously a knowledgeable person in Jamal to answer questions as they come up. Other engagement activities, again, the business community, that's something consistent as we grow and move the messaging about the fixed bus route system in particular. There's an opportunity on this February 20th, this Thursday, to have an info table, and then we have the video. So that's going to be played on monitors there. And then there was an invitation to attend, extended to attend, the South Metro Development Outlook Conference, and that's in the 18th year?
Yes.
Within the 18th year, under obviously the leadership of managing partner Michael Hightower of the collaborative firm, particularly at this South Metro Development Outlook Conference, Governor Kemp will be giving a special address. And this is a wonderful opportunity because we have decision makers, C-level execs, and not only economic development associates in the room, but obviously transit associates in the room from MARTA, ARC, et cetera, across various counties. So it's an opportunity just to have visibility of the first transit program in about 15 years in the area. So those who are in the know will be attending, so it's a wonderful visibility opportunity. Continue to working with Breezy over at Douglas County Workforce Development. There's an upcoming March 11th Industry Summit. So after the community meetings, we are going to lock down time to not only meet and hash out Connect Douglas's involvement at the March 11th Industry Summit, excuse me. But with this summit, it's particularly about transportation. So if you can recall, back in November, working with Breezy, we gave a survey to, she was kind enough to send it out to her database of HR professionals in the area, such as Stitch Fix, et cetera. And 6 area companies in particular came back. So it was suggested after the March 11th Industry Summit that we'll continue to lock in those dates, because those 6 particular area companies are not only interested in transit, they literally check that survey box, but also are interested in fixed route, van pull, carpooling, various services, as well as utilizing basically direct pay or a level of voucher program, and those are all opportunities to speak when we do get in front of those decision makers. As I mentioned earlier, there are community meetings scheduled. As we initially met with each commissioner and got some feedback. Gary and Jamal did a wonderful job of giving a high-level overview, and we garnered their feedback about the enhancements to the existing routes and some proposed updates, including additional stops, etc. We locked in dates upcoming, February 25, 26, 27, and March 4. This column here are the lines where you can, attendees can ride those routes to get to those locations. So Victoria's Kids Academy, they were actually really excited. That's in District 1. It's at Autry Circle, or across from Autry Circle. We fostered a relationship with them because, one, the stop is across the street, and two, it's in the Avalon Township area. So we wanted to touch that area in particular because, one, there's a lot of folks who live in those divisions, as well as you may have heard Commissioner Mitchell talk about Hunter's Ridge. That's a big community development off of Malone Road, and that is one of the closest locations. Other is Hilton Garden Inn. One proposal would be starting a route at that location, so why not on the business district that's currently off of Route 30 and 40 have that as one of the locations. Deer Lake Park, and then of course the transportation center. This is the flyer. I have some up front, and I have some with me as well that I'll gift for anyone who needs or wants those, we would ask that you just please continue to spread the word. The press release went out this morning, and there's some downstairs at the informational table out front here at the table, as well as literature applications, including larger poster boards at the libraries. Can I entertain any questions or qualify anything?
Thank you. Very, very, very well presented. Okay. Any questions from the room? Anybody? Madam Chair?
Just thank you, Dr. Well done.
Thank you, I
Great
appreciate
job.
that.
I've had an opportunity to look at the hometown advantage and all the articles.
Oh,
that you-
good.
So I always get excited, so thank you.
Good, good.
Very excited.
Wonderful to hear.
So you're still getting feedback from citizens? And again, and Gary Jamal, do we get the feedback or suggestions? We're capturing those, right? The qualitative comments and stuff. And so where do we compile those at? Can they be distributed? I'd like to just read what they got to say.
Sure.
Just a raw, just curious, just something to flip through. Again, I got a random text this weekend, and they're saying, Prince Robinson, can we have buses on Sunday? Can you come talk to us about this? Because people over here at the senior center want, they want Sunday service, and so, I get random type of things, but I do want to make that a note. I know we're going to come back to that sometime out in the future, but are our hours aligned? Like, do our hours work? That's really the question. Does it work for Monday through Friday? Does it work for the business community? I know we had some, not a perfect alignment with some of the business community, but what are the thoughts about hours? I know that has implications, but still.
Well, I think the hours are working out very well, maybe with the exception of Route 30. And of course, we've had that discussion before with some of the warehouse and distribution centers that we don't align exactly with them. And that's something that we'll continue to work on, especially as Danielle meets with those businesses over in that area. But as far as the other routes, I think we're aligned up very well with those.
Routes, okay, yeah. And it seems to be growing based on the numbers from last time. It's sort of steady, as people continue to get exposed. So, I guess one more question is, you talked about tracking in social media. You talked about views, and what was the impact? What was the word you used?
Impressions?
Impressions, sorry. Impressions. All right, so, and you talked about people, and I won't call it like click-throughs, but you said, okay, somebody responds, says, okay, tell me about bad food, but we couldn't. Is there a way to tie it right back to what's successful? If I use 3 or 4 different marketing media to get the message out there, and I'm saying, okay, but where am I getting the greatest lift? You see what I'm trying to say something, but I'm not a marketer like you guys. So I'm trying to say, is there any way, does technology allow you to tie it back? To see, are we getting the greatest lift in Chapel Hill News and Views?
There is a way to tie it back, and I can give you it's hard to, at this particular point, to compare apples to apples, because this is the first January within the cycle of this marketing year. So we can do that moving forward because of the launch. The advertising started a little earlier, and the launch started obviously in June. But what I can do is give you an example of this past December. We did, and you may recall at that meeting, and I can forward over information again, about the social media campaign. We did a digital campaign specifically tied to free rides that also corresponded to the ads in Chapel Hill News and Views. And at that point, that was still a full-page ad, as well as the hometown advantage, excuse me. We also upped the ante about December free rides with the Opera Place table tents. And then we had digital videos, that 30-second ad going on at the Opera Place Mall. And can you give me the number again, Gary, for December, if you can recall ridership numbers?
It was over 3,000.
Over 3,000.
Yeah.
So what we could do is find correlation of efforts made with potential ridership increasing. Whether it's direct correlation, it's hard to say which, but we can say there's a definite tie to efforts made within the marketplace, especially with free rides, to the results of December, and some carryover in January. I think Miguel mentioned one, was kind enough to mention one fact with ridership is if a person rides once, it's 26% more likely
28% likelihood of a repeat
a
customer.
repeat customer. So if someone's on the ride for free in December, they had that experience. So we'll make that money up potentially because of the wonderful experience that they had.
Very good. Any other questions, thoughts?
Yeah, just
Yes,
have one
yes,
that's
ma'am.
coming to, for our director to connect up this. We welcome the positive and some constructive feedback. But how are you measuring that, or are you noticing some trends where a lot of those maybe redundant complaints are just diminishing because you've been able to conduct a root cause analysis and determine what the problem is? Are you doing anything? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I would say that the most common reoccurring complaint we have is about the buses still not being on schedule as well as they should. And of course, there's several factors involved in that. One is the traffic. The other has been the success of our flex trips. And I'll show you some numbers about them in just a minute, but of course, to make a flex trip, the vehicle has to veer off its standard route, and sometimes that will throw the bus off schedule a little bit. So those, I would say those are the more common complaints we get on a recurring basis, and we talk about that constantly. We're trying to address that. People are learning how to use the system. Our numbers are up, and again, I'll talk about those in just a minute. But also in our data collection, we're finding out that just about every stop that we have in the county, all 75 or so of them, people are getting on at those various stops. So they're learning where to get on the bus and how to ride. Jamal, you got anything?
And just to answer your point, and that is correct, so we're seeing that they are figuring out now with also the usage of the Passio app, where the bus is, to locate what time the bus will be there to their present location. And so I was telling Gary that I stopped at the transportation center at the platform, and the young lady had the app downloaded, but she wasn't sure how to utilize it. So I had to show her how to go in, select the route that she was looking for, and it was showing that the bus would be there in 2 minutes. And as we were standing there, the bus was coming down the hill and turning into the transportation center. So I think it's still about education too as well, about how to use the technology.
Some of those high traffic areas that you see in the traffic is certainly a problem, because it's a huge problem. Have we thought about maybe factoring in part of your equation, traffic, the time you may have to change the time that you're saying you're going to be there? Have you thought about maybe you need to add another 5 minutes or change your time?
Well, we're looking into that, but what we're going to try first, and we're getting ready to implement this, is that on those heaviest routes, like 20 and 40, we're going to add an extra vehicle during peak time to combat that traffic.
Very good. Any more questions, comments? Danielle, thank you.
Very good
Very good.
presentation. Looking good.
Very good.
Okay, next item on the agenda, also from Transit Services, Connect Up with ridership update. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. If you'll look at this sheet, this has got our most current up-to-date ridership numbers, and following up with some of the information that Danielle gave you. Our numbers are strong and getting stronger. December was our best month. Of course, we offered free rides then, but then we came back and had a really solid January, and February is looking strong too. For January, when you consider our standard boardings, flex boardings, and paratransit boardings, we had almost 4,500, which equates out to an average boardings per day of 173. And for February, we're even doing better than that with an average boarding per day of 183. So from January to February, we're up 10 riders per day on average. And as you can see also, the transfer arrangement with Cobb County is working out well too. Since the 1st of January, we've had 276 transfers into Cobb County. So we're definitely trending in the right direction. We believe that January and February numbers would have done even better, but as you know, we had some really bad weather days in both of those months, and that's kept some people from getting out and making the trips that they normally would during that bad weather. So definitely trending upwards in the right direction.
I got a question for you, Gary, Chairman. 276 transfers from our system into Cobb. Do we have a way of tracking how many come back?
Jamal and I were talking about that right before we came here, and right now we do not have a way to track that.
You don't want to lose anybody. Take them out of the system when they come back. But no, really, it's good to track that, because that gives us a sense for the travel
Sure.
pattern.
Yeah,
And they
definitely.
leave
Yeah.
in our system and they'll come back necessarily the same.
And we'll be working with that with Cobb County. We've got to find out just exactly what they're doing related to transfers.
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that. Lisa Cupid, who's the commissioner over there, we bumped into each other. She was asking how was it going, and so to that point, I'd love you to, if perhaps we can find out that reverse trip, because going, we keep the money, right? And we transfer free away to their system, and in reverse, they keep the money.
Correct.
We can transfer free back. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We'll be working on that. Jamal has a real close relationship with Andrea Ford, the Cobb Transit Director. He'll be talking to her about that.
Okay. Yeah, I know, yes. Okay. The transfers were important, so it's steady, we're making the adjustments, but, yeah, but I had known that we had that many transfers. We hadn't really talked about that. That's good. That 40th been the rock star route.
It has been.
Yeah, that was key tying them all really together and stuff, so into the broader regional system, so good stuff.
And one thing I'll mention just briefly, we talked about this with Danielle, is that as we get into spring and summer, one thing we're going to promote heavily is that Route 40 is a direct shot to Six Flags for kids who want to work there during the summer or just want to go spend the day there.
Well, you know, I think they're about to hire, I thought I saw something.
Yeah,
No,
there is a
that-
hiring fair upcoming.
Because that direct connect over, we do highlight. Now, do we share with Cobb what we're doing? Like, have we given a formal report over to them?
No, sir, not a formal.
Not just saying indirect.
Yeah, but again, like Mr. Gary was saying, I do get, every other month, I'm providing, get the transfers that's transferred into Cobb. So that's the informal form of communication, but as far as what we're doing on this side, nothing else is trying to convey to them.
Okay.
We have regular conversation with Andrea Ford,
Yes.
their director. Jamal meets and talks with her regularly, and plus we see each other at meetings all the time, so they're aware of what we're doing.
Very good. Any other questions?
The signage, before the signage, you know, the larger.
Yes. Yes, sir.
But there they are.
I didn't want to, you said this.
I don't want to spill that part, because again, I think we're
No,
going to
we
speak to it.
we just have got the purchase order to have those signs produced. That'll be started within just a few days. And Jamal's already talked to our DOT sign people about it. So, we're moving forward on that as well.
How many signs are being replaced? How many stops?
That's about 100 plus. And then the addition to the proposed changes in Route 40, 10, and 30.
So 100 plus. Do we need to have any approval to just put them in, and it was replacement, we ordered this purchase order? County administrator, do we have to do anything formally? I mean, once
No,
they,
I don't
once
think
y'all
so.
get what
All
y'all,
we're doing is changing the sign face.
Correct.
Posts are already there.
that's just administration, so y'all just will do it. It doesn't have to come back before the board or committee for you guys to perform that function, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Very good. Okay, anything else? Anything else?
All right, next item, also from Transit Services, an update on the construction project, the transportation center.
We're coming along on that project really good. I hope somebody may have had an opportunity to drive by. Yeah, it's going to be a really nice building, despite the bad weather. They're on target. We got an estimated completion date of the end of March, first of April. I don't think we'll have the furniture and equipment by then, so we won't really be ready to function in the building by the first of April, but the facility itself should be completed by the first of April.
Equipment, not just furniture, but equipment, talk about, remind everybody, what type of equipment's going to be there?
Well, the centerpiece is going to be a driving simulator, where our bus drivers and van drivers in particular will get training in a controlled environment. We feel like that will really improve our safety on our routes and with all of our drivers. So that's, the simulator is going to be the centerpiece. We also have a 40-seat conference hall, lecture hall that will have all the up-to-date technology in it, including some boards like the monitor pad here for training. We're going to have a drug testing suite in there, which will greatly add to convenience of us having to test drivers and other staff members who are in the federally required random testing pool. So we feel like the building as a whole is really going to improve the efficiency of our operations.
County administrator, when we go to our board retreats, we're trying to get the size of this conference center. Is it like the library at Dogwood that we do our retreat size? Is it
It's probably a little bit bigger than that.
bigger than that? Okay.
I'd say certainly, I think it'd be a good spot for you to have your retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I was just asking. Okay, very
And
good.
it's a little bit bigger than our previous training room too, because that probably held maybe 25, what we do over there at the old courthouse.
And so we're moving along, so,
Yes, sir.
no issues. Again, you're talking about training, operational efficiency, risk management. I'm assuming that our incidents that we may or may not have had are within reason, meaning that we're not quite a year into the.
Yeah, admittedly, we've had a few at-fault accidents with the buses, nothing major, nothing involving other vehicles. And that's something that we're constantly talking to our third-party provider about. And again, that's one benefit we have of the addition that we're working on, is because risk and safety is going to be down there with us, to where they'll be even more hands-on with our training and accident procedures.
And maybe you guys have said it, have we captured rider experience? Like, have we polled, asked them, surveyed, it may be still early to do that, but I think at some point, well, what's the rider's experience? you know. Is there any thoughts to do that, or is it, do you think it'd be valuable to understand, what was your experience?
Well, we do that. Jamal and I together or separately, we'll actually ride on the various routes at different times and have conversations with the people on the buses to see what their experience is. And overall, it's been very positive.
And it was also captured in the 90-day report, and I think we have another
We do.
survey that's going to go out soon with Ms. Danielle.
As well as at the community meetings, and it'll be online on Douglasville, the Connect Douglas, as well as the homepage. So it'll be digital and paper.
Very good. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have one.
Yes.
Let me say this, I have.
That's fine.
I just have some interest, I believe you were working with the Public Health Department, the Douglas Health Department, regarding car seat safety, and you were thinking about utilizing one of the days. You remember that conversation?
Yes,
In
yes, ma'am.
likeness?
Of course, Safe Kids
Yes,
is
Safe
already,
Kids.
they're already using the bus platform for their car seat program, and certainly the bay at the Transportation Center will be available to them in inclement weather, so they can get everybody out of the rain and cold.
Okay,
So absolutely, that's on the table.
that's good. That's all. Okay, thank you.
So you,
You're back.
you're partnering. With public health, do we make this for our CSP?
Mm-hmm.
We go past CSP?
Yeah, Georgia Highlands, so,
Yeah.
CSB.
Mhm. Sure is.
So again, just last time when we talked about routes and basically making the adjustments and to Hunter Bridge, some people don't mind buses coming into their subdivisions, and some do. But you know, how will we smooth this out, right? At some point, District 1 and District 2, obviously that's where the need was, that's where the CMAQ grant, because of the need, the map overlay. How do we, other than making small tweaks, how do you expand out to make sure that the greater need is met? Versus, like Commissioner Mitchell said, I've got to walk a mile to get to the bus. How do we do that? And I know I get flex, but that's not the solution for everything else. It becomes a flex system, right? So what do you do? What do you see? This is thought, Mel.
Well, we'll look at pockets of population density, where there are large subdivisions or housing units. That will be one of the deciding factors where we go, and also from public requests. That's as huge as anything, is where we're getting the request for service from the citizens.
Because part of ridership is that you've got this main artery, these 4 routes, but there's sub-arteries to sort of expand ridership. In other words, I just can't get to it. And I listen to the commentary sometimes, I'm like, yeah, but we haven't even saturated, we haven't really gotten out there, right? And so at some point you have to, your spine has to expand. Miguel, you logistics guy, help me. What I'm trying to frame is there some logic behind expanding beyond the routes to extend?
Yeah, no question about it. You want to reach as many people as possible. Typically, how that is done is through a service analysis. Either initially a survey that would be online or disseminated through flyers, but more so as part of a broader effort. You could do it either with a transit services study analysis, or even as part of the comprehensive transportation plan update. There would be an opportunity for public input. And because it is all modes of transportation, we will be touching on not just roads and bridges, but transit as well.
Okay.
No. Excuse me. And I think that one thing that the county will need to start looking at sooner or later, I don't know which one of the commissioners would prefer, is a demand response dial ride system. Now, fixed route works really good in high density areas, but it doesn't work so well in rural areas. So to really provide the overall coverage that Douglas County needs, I think that's something that we do need to look at some point in the future.
I was under the impression that we were going to start looking at it this year, which is 2020, at that demand, the dollar line program, similar to Carol, right? For that rural area. I know we have senior housing unit out there off in that Billerica area
Yes,
that
ma'am.
I believe we utilize. And so in planning, I know the chairman of the committee said we are phasing in one later, but what are your,
Well,
what
what
can we?
my suggestion on that would be for us to spend the rest of this year looking into dollar ride demand response and maybe presenting that to the commissioners as a budget improvement request for next year, starting in 2021.
This is from Marble buses, is that what you're saying? Going to rural
Yes.
resources, the whole nine yards.
As Mr. McGill stated, some sort of feasibility of transportation study, and then also public feedback, because we're gonna make sure that who's gonna ride, and also the logistics behind it, is it gonna be feasible for us to take the bus out there? It's gonna call for the dimension of the vehicle, the operations, the driver, and also the vehicle itself.
Demand response, the per trip cost on it is
very
high.
high.
We had a stakeholders meeting last week in the mayor and the city manager and myself and Mark, and Commissioner Guy, of course, attends the meeting with us, and so it was high interest in dollar ride, similar to Carol, he said, we hear you. So I just want you to know if there is some interest. With the mayor.
And one of the things that, as part of the comprehensive plan update we're trying to do, planning on doing, is holding the meetings, which are going to be held monthly, at different locations throughout the county. One of those locations be out in Billerica. It could be within that community, Lake proper, and we'll have an opportunity to get feedback from them as to what the disposition is for Franklin.
Yeah, I probably got a different position on this topic. It may be premature to pursue. I would want to send the wrong message. The dollar ride, when we just got into this system, the CMAQ grant funding was focused, to piggyback on your point, in the district with the greatest need. And so, you made a very obvious, like, okay, you want to bring the budget for this? Okay. Right. It was already not that cost effective. And so that's going to cost. And so now we get back to the budget. That you're going to put a system that primary. And so, because again, it's concentrated right now, your funding is concentrated in the current route system. Now you're going to create a brand new route system. It may not be tied to that system. It's going to be a full route without it. It goes to $500,000 when we first started these conversations, we went to Cherokee. And so it's one of those like, but here's a thought, why wouldn't they just cut a deal with Carroll County? In reverse. Where's use their system? And let it slide over. Could we enter into something like that to sort of extend your system more? I mean, it's something to think about. It's just the timing, I think to your point, the feasibility of this. I get that we want to entertain it. I get we want to meet the needs of, like, hey, well, what about us? Like, okay, we understand. But how do you, everything's about money. And if we got it like that, I mean, I'm willing to have that conversation. But it's trade-offs. And it's like, okay, well, let's finish where we're at right now. Let's make sure this has been fully completed before we extend. You know, it's like, okay, let's master Atlanta. You know, as you talk about routes and hubs, and Delta Airlines used to work at Delta, you know, before they began to expand to other areas. They fully saturated a certain area. So I'm just like, okay, guys, but I get it. But how do you balance the two? And my biggest thing is like, okay, well, back to that, I'm sure. All right, we'll end the budget, okay. You have that conversation.
Is there a man, but that's the
But that's the same.
I mean, we'll go in whatever direction this committee or the full board wants us to go. You know, if it's your choice to do the demand response dial ride, we can make it happen. Or, you know, we can make some recommendations to you. It's gonna be up to y'all.
Yeah, the commitment was, this was supposed to be a 3-year pilot. Go back to our object list. We agreed that this was gonna be a pilot. We're gonna learn some things out of this pilot. And once we get that experience in 3 years, we will revisit something like a more expanded. Now we're accelerating that. And I don't think we quite got the lessons we need to learn. And now you're gonna add a dial ride, like, okay, guys, now we're about to stretch thin. But again, along with that, we can have it in committee and talk about it, I have no problem with the committee. But let's make sure that there's conditions that says, okay, to your point, feasibility, okay, dial ride. You know, maybe a partnership can be explored with Carol, because it's been written. So again, you talk about costs, and so I'm more of a, it's always about funding. And we still gotta solve the funding for when this system runs out. Right, so it's still like, okay guys, we're getting ahead. You got a $2 million funding that you two years out. Now, I know there's other funding opportunities per se, but like, okay, I'm just gonna go $2.5, $3 million, just like, and that's what I'm saying, I can't obligate to the future because it has a financial condition. It's just me, it's like, no, not ready for that yet.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of intelligence we need to gather before we make decisions. I think the opportunity,
That's what, like, it's not.
yeah, the opportunity's gonna be there to get input, do outreach. That doesn't mean the commitment is forthcoming, it's just, we need to know where we are, what the demand is, and then we can make a decision.
Yeah, and I guess I sort of started this whole conversation to make the point that the fixed route is not for everything. I mean, you can only stretch it out so far.
And understood, but we just asked our guy to come up here, you know, and I think it's a position, I don't disagree, there is, transit and mobility is called options. Got it. It's about balancing, it's like not, could you do it, should you do it? If you should do it, how would you go about doing that? And I think we're talking about timing and funding. Right, so I get you want to acknowledge, it's not no, sometimes it's just not right now. So you're not hearing no from me, it's more of, okay, prove to me that you got this under control. Prove to me that this thing is working, prove it, you know, so before we begin to put another option on the table, I mean, look how long we went before we added another option. All right, so we finally added an option, very first, 15 years, and so now, it wasn't 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 15 years, and so and that's what I'm saying, give it a moment, you know, we ain't even been 15 months with this new system. Let's perfect this, let's just really see what this is. But I don't disagree. But again, in the meantime, it's like, well, hey, could you cut a deal with Carol to at least get the service over there going? If it's that much of a demand, now again, y'all got to do y'all work as the administration to prove that it warrants that. But I don't think anything would prohibit us, like, what, y'all want to extend your system over here.
Well, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but Transitions, the third-party provider that operates our system, they operate Carroll.
Ooh, well,
And everything is already, I believe, Carol's, everything is just exclusive to Carol, they're not coming out south of that, and so they don't have, but they, I believe that Villa Rica population and Post Road, they're looking more or less to come into Douglas County to the mall, shopping, those are the things, they don't want to go to Carroll.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm not sure if it'll just be something that would be conducive to what we're asking.
downright.
It's just you
Pick
pick
me
them
up,
up.
right?
That's, it's simple to your flex, really.
Mhm.
Going to the door to pick them up.
Yeah, but it's no, I think there's no boundary constraints per se, according to, if you write within your procedures and protocols, if you want to go into another county.
And I believe you make an appointment too.
Yes.
Yeah. we got that.
All right, good topic. Gary, did you finish your
Yes.
section?
Yes, sir.
All right, Gail, let's keep it.
All right, next item also is from Transit Services. We have an update on the voucher program and CMAQ application.
Oh, there you
All
go.
right, well, we have good news for 2 grant applications. We're full speed ahead on the CMAQ grant application for $1.6 million in federal money for the second year of operating the fixed route
Mhm.
bus system. There's 2 components that we need to finish the application. One is to hold the public hearing on it during the first commission meeting in March, and then after we hold that public hearing for the Board of Commissioners to authorize a resolution for us to move forward with the application. The
County
only-
Administrator, is that on the agenda?
It's not yet, but it will be. The only other thing we're waiting for, and this is in FTA's hands, is that they haven't issued their 2020 certifications and assurances.
Okay.
And so once they do that, we'll have to bring those before the Board of Commissioners to have the chairman and the county attorney sign those. And then that'll be the last piece of that application. So anyhow, we're moving along just as we should be on that application. We're also working on an application for another funding for our voucher program. We will be asking for $108,000 for that program. It'll require a $72,000
Match.
match. Programs going strong. We have about 130 people who are actually in the program, and a waiting list of about 80 more. So
Okay, so, I'm sorry, say that number again for the record.
about 130 active people in the program, and a waiting list of about 80 more.
And this keeps increasing.
Mhm.
Remember, we read it, move it a little bit, you had some additional
Right.
providers last year.
And I'll have to bring that before the full board at that first March meeting to get permission to file the application.
How much would it take to get that list? I know the list will always evolve, but what would it take to go off us to get to the 100? We finally got over that, now we're pushing over to 200. How much?
If you're asking how much it would cost to clear out the waiting list,
Just roughly, just, it's not.
$75,000 to $100,000.
Okay. Voucher program is working though.
Absolutely.
How do we, all right, so the voucher program allows me to take and go somewhere and call someone, right? They come pick me up. Who provides those services? These are people out in the community?
Private providers throughout
There's a
the county.
list.
We have 7 private providers who offer that service. And the way it works is the client calls the provider directly to
Mhm.
arrange the trip.
So these are people that you have signed off as an administration, like these are the ones you can only use this voucher for? Is that how it works?
Those 7 providers.
There's the vetting they have to go through to get it, to be.
Yeah, obviously, there's a vetting process for a company to become a provider, and it's through the Department of Human Services, and it's pretty strenuous. They just don't let anybody serve the seniors in the system.
Absolutely. I can respect. Question? Good? Same voucher, okay. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Next item on the agenda is, as you may recall, over the last, almost going on a year now, we've been going through the process of trying to qualify consultants to do design work. And the last round, we advertised the project, or advertised the services back in late, I think it was in December. And we retained the firm of Goodwin, Mills, Kaywood, and they have completed the review of the first phase of the responses, and they're going to give us an update on where things are. We're going to need a little help.
Oh, sorry.
afternoon. I'm Rhonda Davis, and I work with Goodwin Mills in Kaywood. I'm accompanied today by Harold Lennox-Hall. He's of Lennox-Hall Consulting. We have another member that's a part of the group as well who's not with us today. I'll get into that in just a second. We are here today to provide the Transportation Committee with an update on where we are as far as helping you in your selections for professional consulting services. Just to give you a little history, a little background, August 19th, 2019, the Douglas County Board of Commissioners issued a request for qualifications. For solicitation for that would be RFQ. This RFQ was for professional consulting services for the transportation projects of indeterminate scope and schedule, and it was to be an on-call basis. The submission deadline was September 20th for phase 1. That was it was to be done in 2 phases. It was also with the understanding that as a part of the process, the firms selected and shortlisted as finalists would move on to phase 2, which would be the suitability response. Today we're just here for phase 1. Douglas County elected to have the evaluations of the RFQs, have the evaluation done by a third party, independent source. And on November 5th, Douglas County Board of Commissioners entered into a professional services contract with Goodwin Mills and Kaywood to perform these evaluations. The evaluations were performed by 3 professionals who were qualified, knowledgeable, and experienced in the transportation field and would be conducted in an unbiased and professional manner. And so for that team, Goodwin Mills and Kaywood selected 3. Again, Harold Lennox-Hall, who's with Lennox-Hall Consulting. Just to give you a little background on a little bit of our experience and what we bring to the table. Harold is can I tell how long? 40-year, he worked with DOT for 40 years and worked his way from construction into a variety of offices and then ended his time with DOT as commissioner of DOT. Also, Bryant Poole, who's not here with us today, he's in a very sunny place right now. He was with DOT as well, worked 28 years with DOT and ended his time as the district engineer for the downtown district. And I am Rhonda Davis again, and I worked for DOT, had the pleasure of working for them for a little over 10 years and spent time in construction and design, and also ended up as state aid administrator before I left work to actually stay home for a little while with my kids. So that's our team that we use to actually do the evaluations. Of the evaluations, there were 25 vendors, so you guys had a really good pool of people to choose from. So 25 vendors submitted for consideration, and of those 25 vendors, there were 11 different services that they were eligible to be able to compete for, and those 11 are listed here. It ranges anywhere from major and minor road improvements all the way to right-of-way acquisition. So quite an array of services to choose from. These services were listed in Appendix A of the RFQ with a complete description of the service and requirements for each. Again, the vendors were allowed, they could submit for any or all. They didn't have to submit for each and every one, so they could pick and choose which ones they wanted to apply for. For the selection process, or the selection method for phase 1, the first thing that we were assigned with, once the county established the criteria and handed it over to us, the one thing the desire that the county wanted to have was that they wanted to make sure that they aligned with Georgia DOT and FHWA, their processes for selection of vendors. And that's in the event that at some point in the future, some of these projects could actually qualify for federal funds. And when federal funds become available, certainly want to take advantage of those. So with this pool and with the selection process and determining this pool, this will allow you to be able to qualify for those funds in using those vendors. So that was important to the county. And as a part of complying with these federal guidelines, the county used a 2-step evaluation process. The first was being a response to an RFQ, request for qualifications, which we're reporting to you today as phase 1. And then as an RFP, which would be the request for proposals, and that's your phase 2 section. The field of 25 vendors submitting for phase 1, the RFQ, were to be narrowed down to 3 to 5 vendors for each area. And then they'll be asked to submit for an RFP for phase 2 of the process. So today, we're talking about, again, that phase 1. And that phase 1 totals up to 50%. So the scores that they receive today would be for 50%. And then phase 2 would obviously, if you do the simple math, 50% would be applied for phase 2. So for the area classes and certification that we were to look at for the different vendors, the first task was to determine if they were pre-qualified. So that's important as far as DOT standards, that you have all the pre-qualifications to do the work. And DOT also issues that pre-qualification certification for them. So that certification was to be included in their submittal. So those submittals clearly stated what they were pre-qualified to, the work they were pre-qualified to do. So once we determined and we were able to verify that they were pre-qualified, the next step would be to actually evaluate each one based on 2 different key fields. One being the prime's experience and qualifications along with their project management team, and then also their resources and workload capability and capacity. And you can see the different ones, 30% for the experience and qualifications and 20% for resources and the workload capacity. And again, this is how it's stated in the RFQ. So as far as the project management and key team leaders, we were to actually look at their education. We looked at their professional registrations, relevant experience, and experiencing using the GDOT specific processes, manuals, and guidance. The prime was also evaluated based on the experience for the previous 5 years. So we looked at their past 5 years' worth of work in delivering similar projects. And then also for resources and workload capacity, same thing. We looked at the project manager and key team leads. We looked at their workload and their capacity. And we also looked at the resources dedicated, that the primes are dedicated to being able to deliver the work. So once we were able to look at those and evaluate those based on that specific criteria, we actually were able to come up with a rating. The rating system that we used, we chose the 0 to 5 rating system. 0 would be if they actually requested to be considered for services, but they didn't actually qualify based on the RFQ requirements for that services. And then it ranged from does not meet to semi-meets to meets, exceeds, and far exceeds, that being the 5. There were also some vendors that did not choose to apply for certain areas, and those vendors we just left blank. There was no score at all assigned for those, so it was not held against them either way. So that was the scoring that we used to determine their ratings. And then once we were able to tabulate the scores, we were able to come up with the top 5 for each of the area services. With the exception of number 4, the bridge replacement improvement design services. There were 6 because we had a 2-way tie for the 5th place. And then also, if you'll notice, number 10, the right-of-way acquisition services, there are only 2 listed. And that's because there were only 2 that submitted that were qualified for the work. So that is the product of the work that we've done for being able to evaluate the different vendors. We have submitted this to Douglas County, and then so the next steps will be that Douglas County will request a written proposal from the finalists for major categories of services for transportation improvements as determined within the county's best interest. Each finalist is going to be notified in writing and informed of the proposal due date, and then once those are received, they'll hand those over to us for us to evaluate as well, and we're going to rate according to the established guidelines again in the RFQ. And these will be based on technical approach and past performances. And you can see the different weights given for each area. 40% for technical approach, and that would be for them the technical approach and being able to deliver the project. And then also their specific qualifications or skills that they can bring to the table that will benefit the project and actually help provide the county to meet the time requirements. And then 10% is given to past performances. So that would be like any references or any past projects that they've worked on, the performance evaluations that they can provide for that. So that again would total up to 50%, and those scores will be added to phase 1, and then that will give you an overall idea of your listing and the vendors that will be available to you to choose from for your on-call services. Do you have any questions, or any questions that we can answer for you? I know that's a lot of numbers, I'm sorry, those get kind of dry, don't they?
No, I can follow you. You did well. I've got a couple of questions before I
Sure.
open the floor. So, very well done. Very good. Love your structure. I'm sure you won't take this back. Sure, this was good. Very good. Question for you, just for, I heard 50% and 50%.
Yes, sir.
Phase one, phase two. Got all that right? And you're using a 1 to 5 scale. And so my question is, the 25 that responded, how did you find your 25? Did we turn them on? Did we deliver them to you? Or how did you get that 25?
Those were delivered to us by procurement. We met with procurement, back in December, and they delivered those proposals to us, so those were the ones that were given to us.
And those were based on the new, Miguel, the reshuffle?
That's correct.
Okay, we're just in time since they needed. Okay, all right, so then they came in and you evaluated them, and again, based on the buckets, I get it, the categories rather. Did you feel comfortable what you saw by way of responses? How about that? I mean, at some point you will see the detail, but what did you see?
Do you wanna answer that?
Yeah, but my question is really about doing business with Douglas and making sure that our processes are clear, how you engage us. So I'm just curious, talk, read.
Okay. Well, it's apparent that everybody wants to do work with Douglas County because you had 25 folks that responded to your RFQ. And they came in here, they were sent to us, and what we found, all 25 had qualifications that were approved through the Department of Transportation, Georgia DOT. So all of these did meet some qualifications. Now, in a lot of cases though, what we did find, when somebody got a very low score, basically we were told in our preliminary conversations that we were to look at the prime consultant, the prime contractor there that you're going to be dealing with. So a lot of them did not have in the categories or in the things that they were going to be producing, they were using subs themselves. So we could not rate the subs. I mean, there's a lot of subs out there. So we were just rating the primes, and a lot of the primes in some of the categories did not have the qualifications that I spoke of for that particular qualification. They had qualifications that met other things. You had 11 categories, and they certainly had qualifications in some. Some of them had all of them, but some of them just had a few of them.
And you made the comment, you only look at the prime. And not that, and again, this is your guys' work, this is not what I do. But if they responded to the RFQ as a team, it seems like this approach, it only speaks to the season. It sounds like, I didn't say that it does, it just sounds like, well, what about those people who are new, that may be 1 to 3 years old? It just seems like we, out the gate, we're only gonna look at the primes. And so how do you, because again, just like you guys had, it sounds like you guys had, 2 or 3 companies coming together to sort of deal with a situation, right? I'm an ex-consultant, so I know how to read business models. And so I'm like, okay, I get it, but I'm just, how do we, I'm still gonna come back to, out of that 25 and down to 11, and maybe what you presented is what you presented. Were they good? How about that? Let's keep it.
Were they good?
Yeah, were they good?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. But like I said, some of them did not have. For instance, in your RFQ, your key personnel requirements in the RFQ, the key personnel had to be from that company.
Yeah.
And they were not. Some of them that had a low score, either a 0 or something, well, if they had a 0, they just did not meet. And it might have been just that the key person was not from that firm.
Yeah, and I get it, because that was our criteria to vote. It makes me think, like, because sometimes we have to, it's called strategic sources, right? We go pick people up at flex organizations, right? We specialize in this, but I've got a relationship every now and then. That guy's so good at what he does, and he partners with us, and it's in and out of based on the engagement. But we're okay. I mean, I get it. I can hear certain things like, okay, what about those situations? Because nothing is rigid. I mean, these are consultants, right? They flex out, they flex in, depends on what the engagement is. But I get the purity of what you were saying, we want to be sort of specialized only in this, but doesn't give room for, I may not have that talent right now, but you could always go cut a deal with somebody to have them as part of an assignment, so.
That's done every day.
Right, that's,
It is done every day,
Right.
but the parameters that we were to follow
I got
did
it.
not allow that.
No, I got it.
And that would be a call that you would have to make, because yes, what you just described, it's done every day.
I'm open for it. Madam Chair, go ahead.
No, just, on your previous slide, I noticed you had Moreland Isabella on one of the, but the new name, I believe, is
Yes,
Atlas.
it
Okay,
is.
just wanted
And
to
there was
make sure.
another, so that was how they submitted, so we left it true for how it was submitted. Also, I think KCI has been purchased by, I think they've been purchased.
KCI
GCA
That's it.
was purchased by
That's it.
KCI.
That's it. I knew there was another that merger that had been purchased.
We talked about, let's look at 7 transportation planning services, but you know, a lot of those projects are federal driven, some of them. Did you, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, did they, are you looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm sorry. Did you look at DBE and MBE eligibility status, did they have that particular status, or am I in the weeds? I just wondering, would you take a deep dive on some of those projects? Because a lot of those transportation projects are federal.
That was a vetting process, the procurement, right? Correct, before they came to us? Is that part
Yes.
of that vetting process?
One of the requirements for any of those categories is that they meet a minimum of 15% DB.
50, okay, gotcha, that's all.
Yes.
And a lot of those, they listed their DBE firms, which is very
Right,
good.
is it, okay, that's good. That's good.
Any other thoughts?
That's it.
County Administrator,
No, sir, I'm good.
you good?
Mm-hmm.
Finally got through this.
Great presentation.
Yes, good, very crisp, very, very good. You gave us assurances, and that's something that is always important, because you guys have been around a long time, way more experience than me. But when people who engage with municipalities and counties, they just want to make sure, they just want to feel that the process is solid, right? That it was fair. You got to compete, but at the same point, it's just one of those, and this just, you brought a lot of integrity and assurance to the process, because that's my, okay, that's what I'm talking about right there. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Carol and Ms. Mills. Next item on the agenda is a proposed street name change. And we have here with us Mr. Bruce Mercer from Douglas DOT. And Ed, I think, is back here as well. And they will explain why this change is recommended
Okay.
and needed.
Yep.
Good afternoon. We were advised from some citizens about some confusion with some of the street name signs that are currently in place due to a GDOT project that was completed somewhere in the past year or so. And it was the realignment of Post Road, Mason Creek Road up at Veterans Memorial Highway. The old road alignment of Connors Road used to come down, turn, and follow this path, and this is the path that was named Connors Road, and would continue on and tie into what was Post Road. Post Roads used to align itself and fall off the page and align with Veterans Memorial. In doing so, we had man on the top, but we had this section that came down, which was Mason Creek, and would eventually make a turn to go to Mason Creek. So this realignment post as today, as it crosses the interstate, comes up and tees in, or not tees, but intersects with Veterans Memorial. The old alignment is cul-de-sac down here. If you enter from Veterans Memorial, it comes down in cul-de-sacs. So this new configuration required us to evaluate existing street names and addresses and the new alignment with the proposed street names and addresses. So the legend here with the dots identifies your road name and the address that each property is highlighted in the pink outline is how it has been assigned, is currently assigned. So if we look at Connors, as we mentioned before, Connors came down, so we have this property here. Anything with the red dot currently has a Connors Road address. Anything with the blue is Matty McCoy. Matty McCoy used to come in and tee into Connors. Then we have Mason Creek that came down, that was a small section and eventually turned, and we have two sets of properties along the frontage of what is now Post Road that used to be Mason Creek. The original Post Road coming off of Veterans Memorial, coming down in cul-de-sac, as we can see, has the gray or silver colored dots that identify their address, and then Veterans, we have one property here with the Veterans address. So when we put all this stuff together, we said, well, the street name signs are confusing. We need to realign and get a process that works for all. I ran this through Miguel, of course, and then with Ed, and they gave us some assistance. And on the smaller spreadsheet that you have there, in the lower section, the existing addresses. Over on the left, we have 1981 Post Road, and we have the owners. And you continue down with the existing addresses. On the right side of the darker black line, you see the GIS proposed address. So, for instance, on 1981 Post Road, we would like to consider changing that to 1981 Old Post Road, because this is the property here that fronts the cul-de-sac section, and that used to be called Post. We think it's better suited called Old Post Road, since the new Post Road alignment comes in as the title. So with that, we've got several of the street name signs, street name addresses that would require changing, many from Post to Old Post Road. The second section, when we get into the 1953 Mason Creek property, which is located here, it has the frontage of what was Mason Creek. It could actually be either a, Cody drew on one. 3020. I want to discuss this 3020. The 1953 would be 1953 Post Road. It would basically just change from a Mason Creek to a Post Road. This property here actually has frontage on two sides. So that's the one in question of 3020 Mason Creek Road. It could either go as a Veterans Memorial address of the 13831, or it could go as a Post Road address of 2391. So there are two corner properties, as we've identified here. This one corner property fronts each, and then this is the fire station. We front and rear on two separate sections. As you'll see down at 2900 Connors Road is the current address for the fire station. And then because it could have frontage either via Matty McCoy which is the new alignment of Maddie McCoy, or veterans, that would be something that the decision would be made through the fire department and what's the best decision there. So as you can see, we'll have several addresses that need to be changed just to take care of the new alignment and more of a simplicity of street names when you're actually driving through that specific area. Any questions?
Yeah, what is the process for, I guess we gotta have a public hearing, and we already talked to the citizens around their impact of, is this for a couple citizens, this realignment? I mean, I hear what you're saying, but have we engaged the local community?
That would be next steps. This is the initial steps to bring it before the committee, and then if the committee is okay with us moving forward, then we would take the next steps, as was done for Veterans Memorial. Ed is highly experienced in doing that.
Oh, yes, I was gonna say, that's big.
Yeah, but there would be outreach to the property owners, and in the cases where they have an option of being one address fronting on one road versus another, then presumably we would give them the opportunity to select. Is that right, Ed?
Sure. And most of the time on corner intersections anyways, they get a kind of a choice. You know. Well, in subdivisions they do, I don't know about.
And again, so, and I guess a pretty direct question is that, because this is district-based and not that big of this area, have you spoken to that guy at all? You got, I've got that problem.
Not yet. Would be next steps.
Another point too,
Yeah, please.
some of these are, well, all of them actually, as confusing as it is right now, it's a public safety issue.
Yeah.
Especially, look at Old Post Road. They get a call for 2961 Post Road. They could be on Main Post Road, the Post Road, and this is a side street that's totally cut off from Post Road.
Yeah, and again, what we did for veterans was I support that.
Oh, you said-
Yeah, you just, notify, I'm good.
Yeah, I think it looks good too. As far as the next step, yeah, we would need to talk to, as you already stated, the citizens, plus let Commissioner Guider know before you talk to the citizens. So
I don't wanna get that was the only point, it was just,
Yeah, no,
what,
I'll get with her, and then we'll roll it out. This is,
And I can't agree more, because when I'm driving that area, I'm totally confused now, because it's, I don't know what
So
happened. It's
configuring
very,
it.
just because of just the nature of the change of it. So this is much needed, particularly from the emergency response. So I'm quite sure, Commissioner Barrett, we'll go through the process and we'll go from there. And, Ed, how big was our other project for the Veteran Memorial? It was large, way large, this is 19 parcels.
Oh, we can handle this in 30 minutes.
Yeah, we could swap these street name signs in a day. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
we just need to fabricate them, 2 days to fabricate them, we'd have this fixed.
Yes.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Director Bethel? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce, and Ed.
Thank you.
All right, so, you kind of mentioned it just goes on the agenda, what's next?
eventually, yes, it would have to.
Eventually, but,
So there's no action here, this is more of just.
no, it's just informational now, and then I'll get with Commissioner Guider and
Yeah,
then.
the
Yeah,
whole
go
process,
from there.
okay, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
After that, then we.
Oh, not, no.
Nobody.
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
All right, very good. Next item on the agenda is a discussion. There's no particular ask other than guidance at this point related to Chapel Hill 4 Intersections project, and I'm gonna need help with the number of that. Jessica, if you would.
Yes.
Just a discussion, okay.
Okay. All right, so,
Is it PowerPoint?
yeah, it's on this slide. Good. Okay, so, we, at the last meeting, I believe, we talked about the consideration for going to a full 5-lane widening versus the 3-lane that we started out with. And when we, after we did that, we approached our consultant, and I asked him to give me a summary of what changes would be entailed, not only from the project standpoint, but from the design standpoint, if we go to the full 5-lane widening configuration. One of the things that they indicated was that because you would be widening an additional 2 lanes, you would have to taper back to the existing road over a longer distance. So they asked us the question, well, you either, if you want to do it within the existing project boundaries, which is kind of like the blue line there, and these lines are indicative of lanes of 3-lane configuration versus 5-lane. I don't expect you to be able to make sense of that other than it's a spaghetti indication of how wide the 5 lanes would go outside of the 3. But in any event, so what they indicated was that the 5-lane configuration, particularly on the north side, lends itself to tying into the existing intersection. It is in very close proximity. In fact, and there's another slide that I'll show you that shows the overall extent of the project. This is within 600 feet of the intersection, and it just makes sense to be able to go all the way north to the intersection, because if you do that, then you can take advantage of the existing turn lanes, and your extra lane would come right into it without having to taper. Whoops. Without having to taper into the 3-lane and back out into the extra lane. So that is the northern terminus configuration. That's what they're recommending. On the south side, it ends, the 3-lane ends about 200 feet north of Anawaki Academy. Now this is the driveway to Anawaki Academy, Chapel Hill High School, Middle School, just another quarter-mile below that. The existing ends here, and if we go to this particular terminus, then we can take advantage of that extra lane there, and it would just line up with it. Obviously, extending it north further and south, we're into 800 feet additional extent. Another option that they've suggested is that because we are, and this is a little broader look, this is Sterling Point, and they're going to be, the original 3-lane configuration would end about 200 feet south of that, somewhere in this vicinity here. Option 1 would extend it to that driveway, a couple hundred feet, and option 2 would take it all the way to in front of the high school into, I believe that's Old Chapel Hill? West Chapel Hill. West Chapel. Yeah, that's what it says right here. I should read my own slides. So this is about another quarter-mile. The reason again is because to go the extra width, you would have to taper it back or look for a point to drop it up into an existing already widened section. All right, so here's the overall project. The section in blue is the existing 3-lane extent. Going north, another 600 feet will tie into Anawaki Road intersection. There would need to be some reconfiguration of the traffic signal to allow for that to happen. And then option 1 pushes it to that Anawaki Academy deceleration lane, another 200 feet. Option 2 would bring it to in front of the schools. So the project, if we were to consider this larger project, it would be the 1.25 mile versus 3/4, we'll be adding half a mile to the project. And the reason why they're looking for, the consultant is looking for guidance from us is because they do not have, within their scope, they do not have the survey information for these other areas. Now, so we would have to accommodate that. If, for us to do it this way, it would eliminate having to, again, taper in and taper back out, and when the widening is done, come back and do the full extent. This would be completed all the way from the intersection to the high school, which is close to a logical terminus as we can get. The project, again, going from 3/4 mile to 1.25 mile would add cost, and we have not identified what those costs are. But if we were to prorate, and we're talking about a $3 million tag for the 3-lane configuration, for the 5-lane configuration of a 3/4 mile, it might be another $500,000 or so. But something for consideration. There is also the option to not do any of that and try and terminate the project within the bounds of the existing. To do that, you would have to then extend back, a transition would have to be pulled back into the project, and we would be limited in the opportunity to take advantage of existing widened sections. So again, the current 3-lane project would terminate about 600 feet south of the intersection. With the 5-lane, it would go right to the intersection on the north side. And we have an option either to go to the academy on the south side, Anawiki Academy, or to go all the way to the high school and take advantage of being able to service the high school. And that is the guidance that they're looking for. At this point is for discussion purposes. They continue to do the design on the 5-lane configuration for the 3/4 mile. But they're looking for guidance as to, do we want to consider more logical terms?
Right. Couple questions. So this is the full length. How many were the intersections? 3?
4 intersections initially. Yes, 4 intersections. If we were to expand it, it would go to 2 additional intersections, but it would just be for the tie-in.
Right. You have the intersection at Anawiki, which we're doing something on the opposite end of Fairview Road, right?
Correct.
With the lights.
Correct.
I get it. So what's the cause? Is it more the funding?
Funding.
We can't discuss that. I know you're working on it, but they're down the path with 3 lanes, right? This consultant has a body of work and scope work that's for 3 lanes. They did some analysis for you, that contract agreement, that can you at least look at this for us? I appreciate that, I understand, citizens appreciate that. But are they asking for us to make a go, no-go?
Well,
or the lean? I mean, it's not a commitment, I'm not suggesting that in this committee, but you're looking for guidance.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we had at the last Transportation Committee, we had discussion about, from a construction standpoint, for them to design the full 5-lane cross-section.
Right.
And so with that guidance, they came back with, okay, well, do you want us to taper back to the existing within the bounds of the project? Or does it make sense to extend it to these logical termini? And that's what they're looking for, that kind of guidance. Obviously, it would involve additional design,
Right.
and it would involve additional construction cost, which would probably be a few years in the future. So the design component would be something that we would have to quantify, but I wanted to bring it back to committee to get a sense for do we want to stick with the original termini, original 3/4 mile length? Or, being that we're considering other projects that would tie into this one, both of the north and south eventually, to consider more logical terms.
Right, so I have perfect information, so, okay. I get it. Yeah.
Future growth,
Growth.
consideration, and then secondly, traffic patterns. Have you looked at a traffic study to see what that possibly would be? Is it worth moving, or should we say, is it feasible to go to 5 lanes?
It is feasible to go to the 5. It makes sense from a constructability standpoint, and it positions you for the future
For the
tie-in.
future.
In fact, some of the argument that we made in connection with the Lee Road extension was that the traffic would terminate at Chapel Hill, but even though it was 2 lanes, it was slated to go to 4 lanes. And so that is how you justify or make the argument that it's okay to consider this project in anticipation of what's going to happen on Chapel Hill. Otherwise, they may, when I say they, federal highway, the funding that we would go after in connection with the other project potentially, they would say, well, it doesn't make sense to take 4 lanes of traffic through this corridor and dump it on a 2-lane road that has no prospect of being widened in the foreseeable future. This, between this segment here and the one that's already been done at I-20, or maybe 4 mile, from I-20 to past the mall entrance. That is 4 lanes already, so between these 2, you can make the argument that, yeah, this corridor is going to be what is being widened. So that is the advantage of doing that. But again, we can contain it within the original 3/4 mile, or recognize that it makes sense to extend it to these 2 other intersections, not to provide turn lanes at these because they already have it, just to take advantage of those lanes to drop the new lanes into.
Have you had any conversations with Commissioner Carlton?
I have.
She,
Very much in favor.
so she's in favor of the 5, but she said you do it once, and you might as well do it like that.
Yes, and when there was a town hall, she held a town hall that we attended, there was very strong support, public support for pool widening. In fact, which is unusual for that type of meeting, instead of complaining about why are you going to disturb my area, essentially the sentiment was, where have you been for the last 15 years? This has been on the books for this entire time of the widening. Why wasn't it priority? So she's very much in favor.
You finished?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To your point, I think that sometimes it's a function of leadership and the ideology. And if you believe that your character area should be non-commercial, we like the way it was, we like residential, we don't want all that over here. But I think sometimes your ideology will run into inevitable change is going to happen that breaks free. And to that point, we get all the people over there. And while I appreciate the beautifulness of District 3 and this conservation, that's a lot of traffic. And again, people just want to be able to get on the street. So you're right, it was a pent-up demand. I heard about the town hall, that there was just such a like. But again, leadership says, we don't want growth. We don't want that. And so how do you balance that, right? And so here we are, we're trying to catch up and sort of respond to new leadership. And so Here's my question, is it on the list somewhere? Is this on some list somewhere?
It is on several lists.
Okay, all right, so.
Yes, It's
Again,
on
this is
the-
just a discussion, so we're.
yes, it is on the SPOS list.
Okay.
It is also on the comprehensive transportation plan list.
All right, so it's on the CDP list, the SPOS list is more of the current 3-lane, but that's an active project?
Correct.
All right, so that's, okay, so we're just, okay. So you have to recalibrate. I appreciate you, you're helping us think through it. It's just a function of, can we do it now? How do we align this? And to your point, does this become a priority? And what doesn't become a priority? Right, or how do you balance two? This is okay, if you have two priorities and neither one can be sacrificed, then okay, that means now you get into the funding. And how do you solve that? But you don't know the cost of this. We know the cost of the current SPLOST project, correct?
Yes,
We just don't know this yet.
this component, but, yeah, it is, again, obviously the priority component, but also there is a design that plays out over time, and then it positions the project for construction later down, a few years down the road. And so we might be better positioned at that time to move the project.
But you got a design right now, we've got to do 3. And we're going to do 3 lanes, and we're going to go to a certain point and stop.
We're gonna do 5 lanes. The way as after the last meeting, the guidance was design the 5-lane configuration
Right.
for the extent of the project that we had before, which was 3/4 of a mile, a little over 3/4
Right,
of a
so
mile.
just for that section.
So we, when I posed that to the designer, they came back with, well, are you sure you want to truncate it here? Because you are within striking distance of these intersections, where you can take advantage of, instead of tapering out and tapering back in, just widen it and tie it to existing.
This is, you're not talking about, well, they created the design for the 5 lanes all the way. Is that true? I mean, I'm still trying to figure out, well, what are they saying? Like, you should just go ahead and do it, you're that close, what are you saying?
No, what they initially did was they designed the cross-section of the road for 3 lanes, but the right-of-way for 5 lanes. The concept being that we would go through and purchase the right-of-way for the full widening at one time,
Yep.
but build 3 lanes only initially. Then, and that was the guidance that we gave them, then they came back with a cost estimate and said, which is what I presented at the last meeting, that you're within 600,000 of being able to build the entire 5-lane widening versus the 3-lane widening. And would you consider us designing the full 5-lane widening? And that was the discussion at the last meeting. The guidance was, yes, let's go ahead and do that. That's when I went to them and said, okay, they're looking at going to 5 lanes. What are the implications of this? Make sure we have all the components of what we need. Then they came back with, okay, we've laid it out and we're within striking distance of the intersection. They strongly recommend that we tie into this intersection on the north side. And then they give us 2 options because they're aware of the consideration of cost. They said, well, on the south side, if we extended another 200 feet, then we can drop a lane into an existing lane at Anawaki Academy. However, if you push it further south another 1,900 feet, then you can cover the next intersection and cover the high school and the elementary school.
Yeah, I get it. The scope is expanding. And so again, for guys, they're just they're designing 5 lanes. Are they saying, okay, we still need to do some more design work to get to that intersection? So is that an ask of money at some point, independent of construction?
Yes. It would-
There we
If we
How much-
decide,
How much-
well, that's what I need to go back to. If we believe as a committee that this makes sense to go to these more logical termini, and we want to pursue that option, then I would have to go to them, quantify, I would come back to the committee with two things. One, what design effort, additional design effort, what is the cost of that? And a planning level estimate of the additional cost of construction to extend it. And then, that would be the ask at that point.
Any cost? Yeah. So we need to get this, again, I was asking about the list. And it sounds like at least a lean that says, yes, we want to explore it. You don't want to set wrong expectations with the public. They're so built up. This is okay, guys. And again, you're stopping short of, like, okay, what's the number? And that's on construction. Back up for design, you're saying, hey, a little bit more to complete that. Capital transportation fund. And so how will we, is there a funding source that you got in mind? Maybe you talk to the county administrator, but and again, all these things are, I support them. Technology will be one time. And we're not at a place yet where there's other options, funding options yet. But that's what I'm saying. I appreciate you just saying this is discussion only. So what funding source we would have available today to at least keep it marginally, incrementally moving along? Like, well, I know construction, that's, we don't have much for that. But what about the design part? What would be the source?
One of the potential sources is the funding that was set aside for Swanson, set aside for the intersection of Mount Vernon and 92. It looks like the state is going to cover nearly 100% of the cost. And so potentially we can redirect some of those funds to at least move the design forward on this one.
Because we won't be able to get a cost estimate until we get the design.
All right, so this is related. We were doing a SPOS meeting last week or yesterday. There was something about Versailles and Versailles of 92 and its light. And it's just like, we were something about funding. I'm like, what was that? I didn't want to bring it up. I figured I'd catch it in transportation. Because both Mount Vernon and Versailles, there was funding that was available, and we moved it and all that, and the legal and that stuff, but I feel like those were the two parties, so why is that compromised? It's not like it's compromised, but it's
Only because there have been two, I suspect, there have been two iterations of the discussion on Riverside in 92. There was the initial realignment consideration that involved Anawaking. And so there was a funding allocation for that at some point, we desisted from that effort.
Right.
And then we engaged in the design at the intersection, strictly at the intersection. That project is ongoing, and the funding for that has been set aside too.
Okay.
So we have a design
So
consultant.
the light will go in at Riverside. It's just,
Yes.
you made it seem like there was a pause, it couldn't be funded. It's set of words you use, I said, okay, why is that? That's supposed to be a done deal, but, okay.
Well, but keep in mind, Commissioner, that we have the funding allocated for the design component. We have not set aside funding for construction. So that is a future consideration. They'll come back with a design and they'll quantify what it would take to upgrade the intersection. And then we will be faced with funding whatever that amount is.
So, all right, so let's be clear. When we talked about the Mount Vernon light in 92, and this is when we said, well, we asked the question, well, how much will this cost? And I think we usually say upper limit is 500,000, we might set aside 250. You have to be able to like you're asking for guidance. So in our minds, it's like, no, there was enough there to cover the upper limit as well as the more likely. And so what I'm hearing you saying is that, okay, it wasn't just about the design. No, to put that on the list and make it a priority at the spots and not have the money to finish it, it's like, why would I do that? Why would I make that decision? The whole intent of having the conversation was the same amount. If it's $500,000 for this one, it's $500,000 for this one. All things being equal. Like, we're looking for guidance from you guys. You gave us those numbers, and so we're holding it to it. But we wouldn't be doing it just for the design. And then like, no, because it's all in. And I know there's different approaches to, like, we'll piecemeal along. I get construction, but, you know, for me, I need to know a number. Because again, we're allocating because we're making trade-offs, big swings, right? So it's like, okay, if I take out an weight and move it over here because that was a greater need, which is lead road, okay, but there was some left over, and we talked about what were the priorities. So I'm just, okay. I mean, this is a discussion, so I'm not looking for anything, but there shouldn't be where we're exposed. So hopefully some of this see, that's what I'm saying, well, some of the savings to finish the light that was there. So I wouldn't want to take away from Mount Vernon to go do something over there when we ain't finished the lights that were supposed to be for here. So hopefully you can get you see what I'm saying? So it's that type of trade-off, like, hold on now, this is new. That's already on the docket. Why would you skip this that was already a priority? So that's all. Just like, but okay. Any other discussion? Now, we gotta keep going. We're gonna be in session here in a minute. Madam Chair, you okay? I got it. But duly noted, I know you guys are working on it, just for the record. Kind of make sure I know that we're working on funding, so that's good. Okay. Again, are you okay with
We'll
that?
keep moving with that. We'll come back with some more numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Miguel, keep going?
Okay, very good. Next item on the agenda is an update on Whitestone Culvert Foundation design. We've had some discussion at the board meeting yesterday. And essentially what the ask today is on the design side. We need additional design for the foundation, and the cost of that is $7,500. And that's to assist with the redesign of the footers and also to provide some assistance during the construction phase for that project. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, this is iteration number 3 or so of the design of the footers for that project. However, once we complete this design, there will be a deductive change order coming back that will cover the cost of the design and several $1,000 coming back to the county in savings. So this change will essentially pay for itself. But we have to come up with $7,500.
That's everything source.
The savings.
The savings.
Right, you got a plan. You get that money, so that's what we're total.
It'd come out of the SPLOST,
Where?
that project, the Whitestone project.
Will come out.
So there's already construction
Oh, you
bid
pull it
that
from
was
the future.
approved. Yeah, pulling it from the future because there's the
Cash.
savings
Okay, you playing with cash.
going with the.
How long is it gonna take you to
spread
get through
footing.
reverse? So we pull from the future in construction. We go, oh, those contractors, we take the wisdom to do this. I get it. I don't want, it's only $7,500, but I make
Well,
it.
spread footing should come early on in the construction process, so it
It
wouldn't be at the
should,
end.
it should, I would say within 4 to 6 weeks of us getting the design to them, we should be processing a deductive change. So
Are
first,
they currently under contract, the design engineers, are they under contract, or are they just working off PO?
they're working off of the PO. This would be an adjustment to the PO.
So it really would require Board of Commissioners approval. Not for this 7,500, it's not, it's not a changeover.
It's just, look, I'm just highlighting the point, like, okay, it's called cash flow. And so you go, I get it, and you just have to manage, it's like managing the project in and of itself, so, duly noted, since there's no action required by us, I think this is just so duly noted.
Well, we're gonna need to process a change on this, so we would need concurrence and recommendation.
You just said that Mark had the authority, and is it necessary, you're managing it as is?
Yeah, that would be in a separate requisition.
Okay.
No, we'll take care of that.
Okay.
In other words, I'm just gonna let y'all be on that one, I'm just,
Okay.
I got it.
Very good. All right, appreciate that. Next item, Lee Road widening, obviously, things are moving along. We have some utility, we're tracking down the utility agreements that were done during the initial certification of the project. And there's a possibility that some of those pertaining to pipeline and maybe Georgia Power or AT&T, I believe it was. We'll have to revisit those. Once I get the numbers updated on that, I'll bring them to you.
Is this new?
Would
Is
it
it
be
new revelation?
New revelation? It shouldn't be. All of these agreements should have been processed back in 2016 and 2015.
Yeah.
So hopefully they will not be.
Hey, not critical, we should understand exactly, okay. You
Yeah,
got it.
if it's, I think I read that to be, is this new exposure?
Yeah. You said no new exposure?
Well, I'm saying I hope not, because it should have been processed back in
Yep.
16.
So if there was a cost back in 16 that didn't get done,
Then it would be an exposure.
it's gonna be new cost.
Now, see, before the project gets certified,
Yep.
all of the agreements have to be in place.
Mm-hmm.
And the project was certified for utilities back in 16.
It was.
Should
You'll compare.
All right, next item on the agenda is a comprehensive transportation plan update. I've had discussion with the consultant, VHB. One of the items, and I do have a handout, should have your copy. And one of the items that we discussed, and I mentioned it at the last meeting as well, was the opportunity to take a look at a sub-area.
Yes.
After the discussion with the Development Authority and others about the needs in that area, I had a meeting with the consultant, and task 4B-2 is the scope for what would be an area-wide study for the Caps Ferry to Highway 5 connectivity that we're lacking. This scope, essentially, they would look at how those intersections connect and how it would be, the connectivity would be improved. In terms of the cost, we've been able to negotiate no additional cost for them to do this. One of the things that we were able to essentially convince them of and trade off is the fact that there are some corridors that were listed under section 4B-1-1 that we already have plans under design, and therefore they wouldn't need to do the detail analysis in those sections. And in lieu of that, we're doing this area.
So they're amenable to work with you.
They will.
And it's nothing formally we need to do, that's just something we can work through. And how do you affect that?
This would become part of the attachment to their contract.
Yep,
This would be part of, would be a revision to their scope of services.
yep.
And so when we process the agreement, you would have all of the scope attached with this revision in it.
And this is going to come to the full board?
It's already been to the full board.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
right, I know we approved it, but
Right.
you're making an amendment to the scope.
Correct.
So,
So do we need, I mean, well,
if there's no cost,
there is no
Mark,
cost
talk.
change.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
you have to have to codify some of this, my point. So
Yeah.
again, if that's something that, hey, can you do this versus that? If it doesn't materially, there's a financial impact, if there's no legal impact, just duly noted. But
Yeah, I just make sure you get it in writing from them.
yeah, you gotta codify the change so we don't get caught later.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially with a, 18-month process.
right. And this is from,
Yeah.
yeah, so they've indicated no additional cost.
So don't,
Yeah, please, kind of make sure that that's codified within whatever your purchase order, whatever.
Yes, sir.
We discuss. Put in the file.
Okay, very good. All right, the Maxim Road Improvement Project, this is informational at this point. We no particular asked item 8. We had a pre-construction meeting on that project and gave them notice to proceed, so that project is underway. One of the things that we discussed at the very first meeting was potentially having some adjustments to the radius at the intersection of Maxim Road and Thornton Road to make it easier for trucks to maneuver. And so we've made some alterations to the plan, submitted them to GDOT. They've reviewed them, they concur with them. There will be a cost implication to implement, but the quantities would be additional quantities of concrete, for example. We'll quantify that and bring it back to the board, but there would be, again, an improvement to the project, but there would be additional costs that we will quantify.
Right, so this deal with Rachel to turn, that wasn't part of the original design?
No. Well, there was an improvement to the turn, but the radius was not brought up to the current standards. It was brought up to the previous standards.
I get it.
So,
All right. So let me just clarify one. What's the cost, you know?
I don't know. It should not be significant. We're probably talking at most $2,000. I mean, it's
Something like
that
this,
order
about
of
that,
magnitude.
yeah.
It should-
All right. Okay. Madam Chair?
Hey, there's, thank you, Kevin. I was going to ask you, there's a median along that area in the Maxim Road, what is that, Thornton Road area?
Yeah.
Have we ever thought about putting some reflectors on this thing? I'm telling you, at night you can't see. I'm saying people run right on top of it.
Well,
You know,
we're-
reflectors is median,
Right.
right?
Yes. We're going to be reconfiguring that median as part of this project.
That's part of the project. good.
Yes, and
Okay.
so there'll be new striping and reflectors, and hopefully that will take care of the problem.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Okay, not on that one. Next item on the agenda is streetlights. Mr. Kia would like to say something.
Like this on the street.
So what you have, that's the street light list we've been working on. So the list actually came from the Board of Commissioners. The prices came from Georgia Power and Greystone. So at the very top, so the top section, there's Liberty Road, Post Road, Highway 5, Chapel Hill, all those. Those are the ones on I-20 that were previously approved by the Board of Commissioners. The total on those was $95,730.53. So phase two would be the next set, the next two sets of roads. So the first set of roads would actually be the middle set. Those are roadway segments. So Lee Road, obviously would need to wait on the Lee Road widening project. The next one is Highway 166, what Greystone has come back on there. Because there's actually no power. The power is about 200 feet off the right of way.
Right.
So what they were proposing here, $60,000, that would get your major intersections on Highway 166, which would be Tyree, Post, Cat's Ferry, Big A, West Chapel Hill, and Highway 5 roundabout. Bright Star Road, from Highway 78 to Highway 5, West Stewart Mill, Simon Road, Dorset Shoals. For example, there's 82 existing poles on Dorset Shoals. Those are quick wins. They just go out there and put up lights. Coursey Lake Road, Tackett Road, South Sweetwater, Mount Vernon, Skyview, and Post. The total costs for those, the Georgia Power portion, $316. Greystone has more lights. Their area covers most of these. Would be $130,379. Greystone actually only had one light. The other one were had existing lights on it. So
Go back up to you talking about that 166 corridor that I heard was far west coming east. What about the roundabout?
that's included.
That is always the roundabout.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't hear that roundabout.
Yeah, the Highway 5 roundabout at 166.
No, I'm talking about the new one is being built down there on 92.
No, that one is not included here. It's under construction right now. Are there lights included in that roundabout on the project, do you know?
I don't know. I know we have an agreement with them to include them if they were necessary for the design, but I don't know if they've been incorporated.
These are lights at intersections or lights along corridors?
So, the lights along corridors, it just so happens the 166, that's a 10-mile stretch. It's only at major intersections.
Right, one of the things that you brought up early on was just that a lot of kids like to live along that section, and so that was mentioned before all of this came online. And so I'm like, okay, so what happened to those lights that were supposed to go all the way around from that where's that at? All the way over to, I guess, the first street would be Chapel Hill, I don't know, maybe something else. Because that was on the list that we originally talked about in the full board of commissioners, so how did that fall off the list?
Yes, there's not enough money to put lights on that 10-mile stretch.
I'm saying, but how did it fall off the list? Could you maybe you can't do all of them, but you can do some lights?
We can do, yeah, well, that's what's proposed on, is the major intersections, which is $60,000.
And you got it from Tuscany, Beatles, Highway 5. I see.
Yeah, it's the
But
major, well,
not
it's just the
all the way
major
You should
intersections.
just go back a little north, just to pick up the ones, it's not that much, probably maybe another quarter, but that new roundabout.
I'll let them just.
I know what you're saying, if you
Yeah,
just.
we can check on the new roundabout
Just
and
put
get,
that back.
you did
Put
add
that
it.
back in there. And sometimes you can have things on this and just have zero sometimes, but it's just the fact, okay, what happened to them? Yeah, okay, you good, Mark, okay.
Yeah,
All right,
so we'll find out about the new roundabout. If that's the case, I will add it, and there will be a revised cost on that line item.
I think you wanted from the roundabout, would walk up to Tuscany, you know.
Yeah,
just
I'm not talking
walk
about the circle, I'm talking about all the way around the corner, around the bend. That's what the danger is, that's what my son and them got in trouble. It's around the bend, going back out toward, 61 basically. It's that strip there. Will you show me the lights are there? They're on this list?
No, I don't know where
It's
it's
dark.
about. So that whole road's dark. There's no lights on that entire road. So where are we talking about?
From the new roundabout, going toward Chapel Hill, so going past Tuscany.
Mm-hmm.
That strip all the way.
So from the new roundabout to where?
Oh, the Chapel, you know, when you go around.
All the way to Chapel Hill?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I believe-
But that's what, I'm sure that's what you were talking about, that was the original conversation. Now, I'm okay with adjustments of.
No, that's not included, that's not included on here. Now, the Chapel Hill intersection is.
Right, but we want, you have Tuscany Hills too, so,
Is that on? I
yeah,
see
see
that, yeah.
Tuscany. Uh-huh.
So you made it, so you.
No, it's not, that is not included.
Oh.
So that's been updated. So there are
Yeah,
five,
that's what we want.
No, but that.
there are five
No, you,
intersections.
we did, but you shifted out of the area that was a primary need, our primary need as well. Now, let's revisit that. Because that, I mean, I'm sure you brought to
Yeah,
me
that was
District
just the
Three,
one I
that's what,
wanted.
that was District Three saying, that's what they wanted, including Madam Carthen. It's too darker on there.
Oh, yeah.
Too many teams, at least you're talking about intersections that to a certain extent has stop signs or red lights, et cetera. But still, you're talking about a 10 mile stretch down, it's like Riverside, I mean, that was 7.5 miles, like, no, guys, that's dangerous.
Mhm.
You know, people complain about Riverside, like, that was dangerous, and so, I'm just saying, how did this fall off the list, or, so, let's try to find something for this,
Yeah.
So the reason it initially fell off is because we didn't have, I mean, there's not enough money. There's not enough money to put street lights along that whole section. So I discussed it with the chairman, it was
So you took it out?
get what we
Okay,
could,
so-
get what we could get.
We was trying to get what we can get, but see if we can put some, maybe some floods, we may not be able to cover it all the way, but just some large, some lights with high density that would lighten it.
Okay,
We'll see what.
I'll check on it.
Okay.
You wanna go with the rest of these or not? I'll just,
You want
probably need to hold
Oh,
on.
what's the total? Oh, we're gonna have the total. So, we got a
There's
total,
probably no point until we get the,
we have a total cost, let's go back to what was left over in the spots when we moved to animate, we did what's called operation and safety bucket. As we pull the sidewalks and lights. So where are you pulling this funding source?
so this funding source had already been allocated, and it was 500,000 out of the $1 million for safety.
That was left over, right?
Yes.
It was left over.
So total cost for these, and there's a lot of these that are very quick wins. They can send a truck out one weekend, they can do 30, 40 intersections.
Okay.
So you're looking at total installation cost of all of these. You're looking at $158,000.
And why can't you get, so what's left in that $500,000, where's the other $500,000, 300 some thousand?
So 95,000 was already approved by the board for I-20. So there would be approximately $245,300 left over.
Right? So what can you do for that? They put 128 lights on Riverside, that's 7.5 miles. You may not be able to do all that per se, but can you get 60 lights for it? I don't know, I'm just saying, you know, as opposed to every other, I mean, spread them out a little bit more. I don't know what the distance is for lights. Maybe
Yeah, no, I'll check on it.
And then you have a large list of intersections with 200.
Yeah, that was included,
For the record.
that's included in these prices.
Oh, he said read it for the
Can
record.
you just read the record, just so people can hear, just
Yeah.
highlight, just
Yeah,
highlight.
so the intersections, Highway 78, South Burnt Hickory, North Burnt Hickory, Anawake Road and Pope, Slater Mill and Pope, Presley Mill, Slater Mill, stop sign on Slater Mill, Timber Ridge, Presley Mill Drive, Highway 5 at Banks Mill was on the list. That needs to be put on hold till the new roundabout's been completed. Highway 5 in Berea. Bear Creek and Mason Creek was on here. There is no, the pole that's there, they have no clearance on the poles. Berea and Daniel Mill, there is an existing light at this location. Bright Star Road and the connector, Highway 5 and Bright Star Road, Stewart's Mill, Central Church Road, Liberty, Liberty Road and Cole, Bright Star and Cowan Mills on here, but there's an existing light already there. Cowan Mill, Mason Creek, Post Road, Daniel Mill, Doris Road, Cedar, Ephesus Church and Cole and Liberty, Post Road, Ephesus Church, Highway 5, South Giles Road, Highway 61, High Point Road, Highway 166 and Post, Highway 5 and Kings Highway, Bright Star and John West, there's an existing intersection project there. Highway 78 and John West, these, a couple of these are Georgia Power. Highway 78 and Liberty Loop, that's two lights at that one. And then the other portion of the loop, which Villarica's taking care of, is Mirror Lake Boulevard and Liberty Loop. So Villarica's contracting with Georgia Power to do those. Post Road, Pool Road, Johnston Road, Post Road, Banks Mill, Highway 78 and Post. There's a couple more listed, but they're existing lights there. Stewart's Mill and Reynolds needs to be after the intersection project. Stewart Mill, Yancey, West Stewart's Mill, there's a pole with no clearance there. Highway 5, Tyree, Highway 78, Tyson, West Stewart's Mill, Woodland Drive, West Stewart's Mill, Creekwood Drive. Total installation cost, including the ones on I-20 above, is $254,000.
Right. So it looks like, District 4, there's an advocacy going on there. I see a lot of District 4 in this. I'm curious as to, maybe District 1 is probably not, because that's primarily city, right? But I don't see a lot of District 1.
So District 1 is mainly up above. You got South Sweetwater Road, Mount Vernon Road,
Yeah, that's on the line.
Skyview.
I got you. But my point was, but that's primarily city though, right?
Yeah, it's primarily city. But I did ask every commissioner and the chairman for input. So everything that was asked for by the commissioners is on this list.
Yeah, I gave you mine, the interstates.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
You got mine, yeah. And Commissioner Carter gave quite a few, and she goes through her areas, so she got quite a few.
No, again, and I appreciate the drive, I just recall this thing, it's like, we like prisons. We like the nightlife. You know, and to see change, I'm laughing to myself, like, okay, I get it. Because again, it's changed. Like, okay, wow, they like to change the character. I put lights up there. Because all this is we like it, girl. We don't want that. And it's something that you respect. Okay, I got it. But to see this change, like, and I'm buying, I'm like, okay, that's real. That light up District 4. And I'm hopeful that they get it. If it's being advocated, it is what it is, that's what the citizens want. But to see this change, to see that shift is encouraging, so I'm good. All right, anything else on this? So do we do something with this?
No, not yet, I don't guess.
I mean,
It's on hold until we can get it approved. So I'll go back to,
you gotta get
I'll go back to Greystone and,
you gotta get approval from them first.
I need to get cost estimates from them on that section.
Yeah, I understand, but if there, all right, how long would it take you to get that, 48 hours?
No, sir, it's gonna,
Take
the last time I brought, it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, that was, I get it, if there was, and I'm gonna let District 3 be, that was taken off. I just think that, everything that was added.
I don't think it was taken off. I think we had discussions about it. I mentioned it, and then the other, all the commissioners also about it. And I think there was some questions about it, so I backed up a little bit as well. I'll just change a little bit, but we still have a few. But Mark, I see Tuscan, because there were some questions. I didn't want it all. It was
Yeah, that was
questions.
more, it was more about process as opposed to the need.
Yeah. Remember when we
The
mentioned
need
that?
didn't change though, it's sort of like, oh, we just want to take this off the grid. It's like, no, we just do the process right, and then that, like, it's like, okay.
So the
Again,
initial request was Highway 166 from Tuscany Hills to the roundabout.
Right.
It was my understanding, it was the Highway 5 166 roundabout, not the new roundabout. So that's where the confusion was.
Okay, so you're gonna ask, see, that's, so, oh, that's a hijack, oh, wow. Because I know that, I mean, we were always clear on what that was, but talk to the district commission about that.
Well, yeah, that may be the case, but I misunderstood what was asked.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, this whole shift, you took out 10 miles and
I
shifted it
didn't
west.
take it out.
Okay, all right, it was taken out. We were like, oh, God, I can't do this. You revisit that.
Mark, give us some prices. We'll just give some prices.
Yep, I'll get some more project pricing.
One of them was some controversy when I mentioned it, and I'm from District 3, so you can ask me. I wanted it, but it was a pushback when I mentioned it. And I don't remember which commissioner, but they just kind of started saying, you can follow the process, so I left it alone. And back up. So let's put it back on that mark, because that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
It was a safety area for the babies coming out of the Manchester area and coming back to the Chapel Hill border.
Okay.
Because we'll
We'll
take
work on
that,
that.
yeah, because no, I had it on there, but one of the commissioners pushed back on the work
Yeah.
session, and I just said, I yielded, I retreated, because my baby's grown, but I want to take care of the other ones too.
Yeah, but, okay, but I think the sentiment was outside the different district. The need is still the need, though. We have to take the commentary like it is. You don't throw the citizen, you don't throw the safety under that, out, like, no. Deal with that you have to back up for the process, but the need, that 10 miles should not have been taken out. You got to do over. You got to back up, but you don't, it's like in spite of, okay, I'm like, no, because it's just like, that's not what that's about. And that's your district.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. We go? Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
That was it.
Good meeting, man. You're good. It's always very meaty and so that we have to, so I appreciate you throwing this in this. County Administrator, you okay?
Yes, sir.
You got? Madam Chair?
Just a few questions for Gail. Stephen, Riverside,
It's under review by the chief.
okay. Bottleneck traffic coming out of Wakey trails, I just hear the rules coming about 166, all those houses in Anawaki Trail is at least probably 1,300. Is there ever been a light discussed coming out of that subdivision and I know that's Commissioner Ross's area, I'm just asking, coming out of
Not
about
to my knowledge.
on this, I don't even know if you could put one coming out of the building commission. I'm just asking, because I know I've been there just walking there, I don't think it's, I think there's only one way in, in that subdivision, just one way in, or?
Way to design it.
Yeah.
I can take a look at it.
Just look at it, you don't have to do anything, I was just wondering, I said, And then last but not least, on major thoroughfares such as Post Road and other areas, have you ever, probably had any discussions when we will resurface Post Road again, you know, like Lee Road, those major arteries such as Post Road, Lee Road, Liberty Road, any discussion on those?
Well, that would be a discussion for the next round of contracts.
Would it be the LMI?
Well, it could be, typically, that major corridors like that are splossed. So they would, next year, there'd be an opportunity for a sploss component, as well as the LD. So we can look at it for that.
I was just riding through sometimes and look at those two several of the major arteries. I didn't know if they were on the list for future resurfacing.
No, but we can take a look.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, Jerry? All right, guys, this meeting's been long enough. If nothing else needs to come before this committee, let this meeting be adjourned.
Okay.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You're doing a great job.
Good
As always. Thank you.